Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to class this afternoon. If you're watching with me live, thank you for tuning in and watching live. If you are going to watch this later on a recording, well, I appreciate that as well. I just wanted to kind of get started out this week with a little bit of explanation, a little bit of more easing our way into the course, and explain to you what these live streams are going to be over the remainder of the semester. And I know this might be a little different for you. Like, in general, this is not something that I understand that, like, instructors usually use, for trying to have some sort of interactive live class for an online class. We see other stuff being used. And I like to use this. I think it gives me more versatility. I think it's good for you guys because you don't need any additional software like Teams or Zoom to have to log into it. So if you're away from your regular computer or away from somewhere, you can still log in and watch, even if you're, not quite at your normal computer where you have all your stuff installed. And, I also figured that most people are probably on YouTube anyway, so they understand what YouTube is and how it works and all that kind of fun stuff. So it seems to work. For those of you who have had a class with me in the past that's been online, especially in the past couple of years, I think it was 2018 I started doing this. Might have even been 2017. I'd have to go back and look. But I've been streaming on YouTube for live classes like this for a couple years now. So if you've had one of my online classes in the last couple of years, you've experienced this and know the score, which, this class being what it is, these are all, you guys are all return students. Most of you have had classes with me before. So I think probably the majority of you know what's up, and then everybody else will kind of get used to it as we go along. But I want to kind of talk to you about what these live streams are going to be. For the majority of the semester, today's going to be a little different than what I want to see in general, but for the majority of the semester, I'm going to want these live streams to be driven by you guys. Because this class is a little bit different. I really enjoy teaching this class. I think it gives me a good opportunity to get to know a lot of you, and we aren't really getting into deep, heavy, content knowledge. This is, we do some deep stuff in here, but it's more personal and more introspective, and I think it's all about trying to get you prepared to move on to that next step, whatever that next step may be. And that's why we have this course as a part of our program, to give you all the opportunity to kind of get prepared, start making a resume now, get used to the job application process now, and get this, what is going to be the final big project, the big piece that is your big deliverable at the end of the semester, this e-portfolio, finished. Because the e-portfolio is really something that kind of gives you a competitive advantage in the job marketplace. And we'll talk more about that in just a few minutes. But in general, basically from next week going forward, what I want these classes or these live streams to be more working with is to be more driven by you all. So I want you to ask me questions, and I want you to suggest topics that you want me to discuss. And if you can show up to the live streams and participate in the chat, that would also be, appreciated. Because really, this whole thing that we're kind of doing, it's kind of a personal journey, and a lot of people have different understandings about different things, and a lot of people are approaching things from different processes. And as you're preparing your stuff over the course of this semester to get ready to move on to that next step, it is one of those things where it's some things are general, some things are specific. And we'll talk a lot about all that. But I want to know what you want to hear. because that's really going to help me drive these live streams going forward. Because I've got stuff that I can talk about, but if it isn't relevant to you, or you're not feeling it, or it's not answering a question that you really have burning, then it's not going to do you much good. At the end of all this, I want us to feel confident that we're taking that next step. We get that degree, and then it's like, what's next, right? So I want you all to kind of leave feeling confident that you have an understanding of what's next and an understanding of where you're going from here. And and that's sort of the thing with this whole course, is that really when we come into this course, there are all sorts of different types of students that come into this course to take this course, because it's a required course in our program, and we have all different types of students in our program. We have students that came into the community college fresh out of high school, never really had a serious job, maybe some kind of service job, working at a store or fast food, but not a job in the IT industry. And so so the process for application is completely foreign to them. The idea of having a resume is completely foreign to them. Zero experience in interviewing or searching and applying for jobs of that nature. So we have this segment of students that have zero experience with the stuff that we're talking about this semester. And we also have students who are in careers in IT. Maybe, they might be here like improving some skills, building some different skills, that sort of thing. But they've already gotten maybe multiple jobs in the career field. They've, had experience doing all this stuff. All this stuff's kind of old hat to these individuals, and everything in between. So, that's what we're kind of looking at. So your place where you're at this point in time could fall anywhere on that spectrum. And we want to try to make this process as relevant to you as we possibly can, because of just how different the people are. So if we could cover some different topics from other sides of the fence, from perspectives that are in the class, that's going to make things more relevant. That's going to make things better. So I want to hear from you. Show up and participate in the chat, ask questions that way, send me emails, ask questions that way, give me some things you'd like to hear me talk about or provide some insight on as we progress. And so that'll be next week going forward, because I want to give you all the opportunity to, think of stuff and ask stuff. And as we go through the modules and as you do more things, I'm sure some more questions will arise. So you can ask new questions at any time. So that's one of the big goals that I want to have for this course. But to kind of get us more acquainted with some concepts, some ideas that we're going to be looking at, I have us here in Module 1 of the course, and I want us to look at a few things and talk about them and try to help you put some more things into perspective as to what I'm going to be looking for this semester. Because really, this first module kind of lays the foundation for everything that we're going to be doing this semester. Everything kind of builds on top of this, because everything that we're doing is surrounding this e-portfolio. And so the idea of having the e-portfolio is that it's something in addition to a resume, something in addition to a cover letter, that's going to give you an advantage in the job market. And one of the biggest things that's going to give you an advantage in the job market are the artifacts that you're going to put on your portfolio. And we'll talk more about what those are in just a minute. But what I want this e-portfolio to be at the end of the day is something that, you can send employers along with your resume, along with your cover letter, along with your LinkedIn profile. We'll talk about building that a little bit later. Along with all this stuff, so that they can see something and kind of get an understanding of your professional abilities in a nutshell. And that's the big thing with this e-portfolio. We want to get the professional abilities, who you are or who you would be as an employee in a nutshell. And we're going to be building that little by little over the course of the semester with, and at the end you turn in your completed portfolio. Now, the biggest part of these e-portfolios and the most important part are your artifacts. And I want you to have several artifacts that you have prepared for your portfolio. And in this module, I ask you to kind of list them out and get them ready for me so I can see what you're working with. But the idea of the artifact is that I want to see something that proves you can do what you say you know how to do. And for some of the disciplines, this can be kind of hard. Like if you're in networking, it's going to be kind of hard to find artifacts that are going to meet your needs here. Cybersecurity, you can do things like really for either networking or cybersecurity, if you've written things like standard operating procedures or something like that, some kind of process, for security, if you've written a security policy, those are things that can count as artifacts. Network diagrams, like if you have something where you've subnetted a network and pathed it out and have everything derived, that's something that could be considered an artifact. Basically anything that is physical that proves that you know how to do what you claim you know how to do. And this can be stuff that you've done in class, or this can be stuff that you've done in the real world, like let's say a small business or maybe your church or something of that nature. Maybe they asked you, hey, can you come in and set up some equipment for us? If you maybe have a photo or two of what you did and some documentation of what you worked on there, that would qualify. There's all sorts of things that could qualify as an artifact for an e-portfolio. But what we really want to make sure that we have here is that we have something that is like a project, is something physical, is something that it means something in the real world, right? So like quizzes and tests and all that kind of stuff doesn't really matter. The only test that would matter, it would be if you have some kind of industry recognized certification, A+, Net Plus, Security Plus, something like that. Then that could qualify as an artifact because that is an industry recognized standard that proves knowledge. Now, my students in the programming and web development track, you should have an easy time coming up with artifacts. Because with all the websites that we create, with all the programs that we write, it should be easy for you to pick out your best examples of your work. And that's another big thing to point out here, is that when it comes to your portfolio, you are as strong as your weakest artifact. I would rather you have a handful of super strong, super good, very well done artifacts than a bunch of kind of poorly done, poorly thought out little projects. We're looking for quality over quantity here, because that's what's representing you, and that's what's demonstrating your knowledge. And if you have one piece, one artifact that's kind of sketchy, that isn't really the best, but maybe you threw it in there just to round out and have 10, that one rough project is going to be the one that people see, that they're going to be like, oh, this is not good. Maybe we need to look elsewhere. One of the things that we'll talk a lot about during this class is really how you get to control your own narrative. You get to show the version of yourself to potential employers that you want them to see. You decide what you put on your resume. You decide what you put in your cover letter. You decide what you put on your e-portfolio. So if you're putting your best foot forward and you're putting out the best version of yourself to the world, then the world is going to know the best version of you, and that's ideal. That's what you want. That's how you get hired. So I have these portfolio examples here for you to look at. And I'm going to pull up one in particular for us to examine here, because it's probably the best done example in terms of what I'm looking for. But I wanted you to see some different examples of how people laid theirs out and how they are on different platforms. Some of these look great and they're really good. Some of them are, maybe they don't look so great, but they have some different parts to them that make them interesting. And, all of them have fairly decent wording in terms of professionalism. So they're all reasonably good examples of people who have made some kind of portfolio of some type. What I'd like us to do is I'd like us to take a few minutes to look at the very first one here. Wix example 1. It's one of my favorites. That's why I put it first. And it really is in terms of what you do for this class, it's probably the most similar to having the requirements that I'm looking for on the final project. Because one of the things that I ask for is I ask for a headshot. Mr. Carter here has included his here on his homepage. And another thing that I want on your homepage is an elevator pitch. And Mr. Carter has his here as well. It's here in the center. This part here, just giving you a heads up about who he is, what he knows, what he can bring to the table for your organization. And so it's fairly interesting as far as all that goes. He has an about section here where he gets a little deeper into himself. But this about section also has his curriculum vitae on it, which is his resume. Now, curriculum vitae and a resume isn't exactly the same thing. A curriculum vitae is more for somebody who is looking for a career in academia. So when you look at this, he has his publications and presentations on here, which you're not going to have any of that. For our purposes, our resume is going to be a much more truncated version of what we see in a curriculum vitae. And we'll be talking more in future modules about what exactly we're looking for in a resume. The majority of you should probably only have a single page resume, and it would include things like education, which is here. If you belong to any professional associations, you can put that on there. Any awards and honors, you can put that on there. And of course, your work history, which is here in his item C. And how you arrange your resume is actually going to vary from person to person. Because maybe you have a lot of relevant education, but not very much relevant experience. So you'd want to highlight your experience over your education. Maybe you have a lot, maybe that's flipped. Maybe you have a lot of industry experience, but all you have education-wise is your associate's degree. Promote your experience first before your education. So that's going to depend on the person and how you want to best put your best foot forward. So he has his resume, which in his case is a curriculum vitae because of the type of job that he's looking for. And then he has these two tabs here. These two tabs here, the in the field and the in the classroom, are essentially his version of the artifacts. And I'm going to look at the in the field ones here because they're what we're kind of looking for. Right? When we see this, this is exactly the kind of thing that I would want to see. Now, like, he has different types of artifacts here, but this type of stuff is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about artifacts. He has the thing that he's done here. He has a pictorial or some kind of visual. You might even have the files themselves here. And he has a little write-up about what he's done, his contributions to it, and the impact of what he's done. So, like, you know, and you can think about this in terms of like, oh, well, like if you did a group project and you want to put the group project as one of your artifacts, you're welcome to do that. However, you need to make it clear in your description the parts of the project that you had impact on, that you did, that you were involved with, that made a difference in the project. Because again, we're talking about putting our best foot forward. So when we're talking about these artifacts, it's not enough just to have an artifact, because really out of context, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I want to have an artifact with a little blurb that talks about your contributions, what you did with this project, how it proves that you know what you say you know, and the impact of it. So that's exactly what I'm looking for your artifacts. That is exactly it. And when we scroll down through here, we can see other examples here of pictorial evidence with his write-up. He also has some presentations that he's done here, which is a part of this particular write-up. Other stuff, visual presentations of what he's done, along with a written blurb stating what this is, what he contributed to it, and the impact that it had. So that's one of the big things here. And, you know, some way to contact an individual. And again, it has his resume here. So in my opinion, if you want an example that is going to give you the most bang for your buck in terms of a basis for how you want to build yours, I'd say Mr. Mitch Carter's here is pretty good. You know, you could use this as sort of the foundation for what you do and just kind of build it within our specifications. But I do let you choose the platform that you want to host it on. You know, I know that not all of you are web development students, so I put the options out here to do them with the site builder sites. So So things like Wix and Weebly and WordPress.com and all this other stuff. Now, if you are coming from the programming and web development or web administration and design programs, the new program and the old program, respectively, and you want to build your own from scratch, you're welcome to do that. Because then essentially what happens is the portfolio itself becomes another artifact piece. So you can actually talk about what you did in building your own portfolio as a part of the artifacts. So that's a win-win. So if you have questions about what constitutes an artifact, maybe you want to say, hey, would this be an artifact? Reach out to me. Send me an email. Send me a Teams message. Something. Tell me what you've got, what you're working with, and I'll let you know if I think it would be suitable or not for our purposes. And I want to wrap this up relatively quickly because I don't like these live streams to be very long. I'd rather them be shorter for them to be watchable for you all. So around 30 minutes is where I like these live streams to be. If we get to going on something, maybe 45. But before we wrap up today, I wanted to talk about the job application assignment, because you've got one due on Sunday. And if you remember back to the orientation video that I put out at the start of class, one of the things that I said is I want you to take this seriously. Because it is serious. This isn't just an assignment. It is an assignment, but it isn't just an assignment. Because it'd be great, if some of you actually got some job offers from maybe some places that you really want to work at by the end of the semester. That'd be pretty neat. So I'd like for you to apply to places that are within your field of study, things that you're interested in working in, things that you think you could actually get the job at. Look at those job applications, job descriptions, read the KSAs, read the knowledge, skills, and abilities that someone who is getting that job or who is would apply for that job would need to have to get that job, and apply for it. I want you to take it seriously. I want you to treat it real, because it is. And of course, along the way, I want you to fill out these job application assignment worksheets to let me know the different things about the job that you've applied for. But one of the big ideas here is that with each application, not only are you potentially getting a job that you might want, but you are getting experience in terms of applying for jobs, which can sometimes be difficult. You can get an experience in terms, if it goes to that next level and you get an interview, the more interview experience you can get, the better. And if you're already in a career and you don't really want to change, you can just politely decline. And you can say, you know what? I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for interviewing me. However, I've had another opportunity open up, and I'm going to explore that, and just let that be it. Don't say anything about the class. Don't say anything about doing this as an assignment. I want you to take it seriously, because it's real. And so you have one of these that's due this coming Sunday. One of these a week, every week, from now to the end of the semester. Which means you're applying for 13 jobs, maybe, over the course of the semester. Something like that. I don't quite remember. I could look right quick and find out. Because the final one's over here. 14 jobs over the course of the semester. So you'll have 14 job applications under your belt by the end of the semester, and with each application, you'll be getting a little bit better, and a little bit better, and a little bit better, and a little bit better. And as we progress along, well, you know, in the next module here in a couple weeks, we'll work on making your resume stronger. And so from, let's say, job application assignment 4 forward, well, from that point, you'll have a little bit stronger resume, and you can start seeing the difference that that makes. And so you can see the difference that different things make. You can experience the application process, and you can watch yourself get better over the course of the semester just by practice and experience. That's what we want. So that's all that I have for you for this live stream. If anybody who's watching live with me has any questions, I'm going to hang out in the chat for just a couple minutes to answer questions. If you're watching this recorded later on and you have a question, feel free to email. I will answer it and give you an answer to the best of my ability, or maybe we'll save it for a future live stream. Depends on what you'd rather have. So that's all that I have for you for today. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.